President Trump is not somebody who hides the ball. If he believes that the DOJ is in fact a tool to go after political opponents, he will just use it that way, and he will do so out loud. Now, do I think that that is significantly worse than what Democrats did? I actually don't. I think the fact that he's doing it out loud at least makes the game pretty clear. I'm not sure that it is better to do this sort of stuff quietly, to pretend that the DOJ is actually an objective arbiter and enforcer of the law, rather than just saying the quiet part out loud, which is what President Trump is doing right here. And President Trump, let's be clear, President Trump is not hiding the ball here. Remember, he hates James Comey, and not for bad reason. And here in 2021 is James Comey calling for Trump to be thrown in prison.
Convict him, bar him from future service, have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life, just down the street where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation.
Okay, I mean, he was a ridiculous figure. And President Trump, again, was not hiding the ball. Here he was yesterday before the indictment came down.
I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay, so, again, President Trump, he does the quiet part out loud. So what does this mean? Well, I mean, I think that, as always, the question about President Trump, the left always asks the wrong question. They look at a body of an institution prone in the street, and they see President Trump standing over the body, and there's a knife in the back of the body. And they're like, well, Donald Trump killed this institution. Donald Trump killed the DOJ. And those of us who've been watching politics for a while say, no, Donald Trump is just the coroner. That knife was in that body. It was slid in there subtly by Biden and Obama. And Trump came along and he just pointed out that this body's been dead for quite a while. And in fact, the body is cold. And I think that is what's happening here. Now, is any of this good? I mean, the answer to me is no. Now, I understand mutually assured destruction. I understand President Trump saying, listen, we're going to be openly political about the use of the DOJ if the other side was covertly political about the use of the DOJ. And maybe in the future, everybody will stop being political about the use of the DOJ. However, I don't think that's the argument that's being made. It seems to me that the argument that is being made is that it is actually a good, that actually it is a good thing to do this, to use the DOJ as a sort of an enforcement mechanism. And again, I don't think that President Trump is unique in this view. I think that Barack Obama thought this. I think that's why he had Eric Holder playing his wingman going all the way back. And Joe Biden thought this as well. But for America, it is not, in fact, a good thing. For America, it is not, in fact, a very good thing for the DOJ to be widely perceived and indeed used as a political tool. I used to think grocery shopping was simple. And then I learned that over 4 billion pounds of meat was imported into the U.S. last year and can still be labeled as product of the USA, which is weird. If labels can be misleading about something as basic as where your meat comes from, what else don't you know about the meat that you're buying? And this is why Good Ranchers is taking over the game with quality meat you can trust, all born and raised right here on American soil. So our staff is constantly eating the Good Ranchers. In fact, the kids of our staff really eating the Good Ranchers. I've mentioned producer Savvy's child. When I say child, I say it advisedly. That kid is as big as I am, and the kid's like 3 because of Good Ranchers. 100% American meat, locally sourced from American family farms and ranches, delivered straight to your door. Right now, you can get $40 off plus free meat for life when you subscribe with my code BEN. That is BEN for $40 off and free meat for life. GoodRanchers.com. Welcome to the table. Get yourself some good old American meat right now at Good Ranchers. Go check them out right now. It's GoodRanchers.com. And even if the indictment is good, this is my problem that I've seen with, for example, the FCC chair Brendan Carr making public comment on Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel should be off the air because he's a terrible host and because people don't watch his show. He should not be off the air because of pressure from the FCC. If there's an indictment to come of James Comey, it should come based on the analysis of the law, not because President Trump is out there pretty openly pushing for the indictment of James Comey. It's a mistake. Right? All of this needs to be, if you want to recatalyze the institutions and make them useful, if you actually would like for an America in which we don't have this spiral, this ever-escalating spiral of the use of institutions to target political opponents, at a certain point, somebody is going to have to restore honor to the institutions. That is the thing that's going to happen. And not only that, it actually sullies the capacity to get a conviction. Let's say that this is a good indictment. Let's say the indictment against Comey is stronger than I believe it is based on the available evidence. Well, let's say that actually this is a convictable offense. Fine. You don't think the defense is going to have a very, very strong case for bias in the jury pool? You don't think that they're going to have a case when the president of the United States is openly calling for conviction? Now, this is a case that I've made with regard to criminal defendants before when Joe Biden was president of the United States. I've said this about Derek Chauvin. And when Derek Chauvin was convicted, it certainly didn't help that the president of the United States and the governor of Minnesota and many others were pretty much openly calling for his conviction. Well, when the president of the United States is openly calling for your conviction, it's going to be pretty hard to get a fair trial. Right? This is a bit of a problem. So it actually throws an obstacle in the way of getting to the proper legal result. We'll have to see how all of this plays out. The same thing holds true, by the way, on the prosecution of John Bolton. It may be that a potential prosecution of John Bolton is amply justified. It may be. We don't know yet. I've been withholding judgment until I see the indictment or see the evidence, as is my habit. I like to wait until all the evidence is in to judge the veracity of the evidence and whether, in fact, the person deserves conviction or acquittal. But let's say, for the sake of argument, the case against John Bolton is really strong. The fact you have the president of the United States out there over and over and over again going after John Bolton is not a good thing. And if the shoe were on the other foot, it also would not be a good thing. So we can recognize all these things at the same time. We can recognize, one, that this indictment, I don't know whether it's good or bad at this point, how strong it is. There are varying opinions. Until I see the underlying evidence or even details of the underlying charges, it is very difficult to tell. Two, it is very difficult not to perceive a sort of tit-for-tat, turnabout as fair play aspect of what the DOJ is doing. And that means all the things, right? It means that this did not start with Donald Trump, but it is being done by Donald Trump now, right? It means all those things. And three, it means that if we're ever going to have a DOJ that we can trust again, at a certain point, we're going to have a DOJ that we can trust again. And what that's going to mean is the actual use of the DOJ by the people running the DOJ to enforce the law rather than the political priors of the person who's in office, whether quietly as under Obama and Biden or overtly as under President Trump right now. When we talk about the DOJ, we talk about who caused the decline in trust over at the DOJ. It is absolutely worthwhile to note when the American decline in trust actually began. And so I asked our sponsors at Comet, a new web browser by Perplexity, what do polls show about American trust in the DOJ? When did it begin to decline? According to Comet, American trust in the DOJ is at a historically low level, with recent polls showing only 39% of Americans view the DOJ favorably, while 46% have an unfavorable opinion as of August 2025. The decline began gaining national attention around 2020, and public confidence fell sharply as the nation entered the 2020s, marked by political controversies, high-profile investigations, and shifting partisan views. So it actually started to dump while Joe Biden's era was happening. The steepest drop in trust began around 2020, and that was largely because of perceived politicization of the DOJ. That's because of all of the news that was arising about Trump-Russiagate. All that stuff, you remember, came to a head in 2020. Earlier declines were gradual throughout the 2010s. But again, that controversy over the DOJ, the FBI, Trump-Russiagate, that killed it. So it had already started to decline even under Barack Obama. So at this point, trust is really low. But again, attributing that to Donald Trump personally, as opposed to the attempt by the DOJ to target President Trump and his allies, that would be a mistake in the timeline. Right? If you want John Bolton convicted of an actual crime, if he committed an actual crime, it's actually not a great idea to go around talking about, as president, how much you want John Bolton indicted and convicted of an actual crime. So we'll see how all this plays out. Again, mistake none of this for sympathy for James Comey, other than perhaps some aspect of legal understanding that maybe the case is weak. But as far as personal sympathy for James Comey, the guy's a schmuck. James Comey's been awful for years. James Comey is going to go unindicted for many, many things that he did that probably are not criminally prosecutable, but definitely helped wreck the country. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.